Guess
Hey
what? We're
everyone.
back. We're back. It's another Maker Spotlight here with your pals at Cohere. I'm Arjun, data scientist,
I'm
fan of LLMs. This is Sonam.
Hi. Hi Arjun. Hi. Hi everyone. I'm Sonam. Yet another Cohere champion, community champion, as Arjun said. And we are very excited about today's Maker Spotlight. We'll tell you in a bit why.
We're very excited because this is the, I think, first Maker Spotlight where we're featuring usage of the RAG capabilities that Cohere has launched. So not only is it using large language models, but it's using large language models in a way to retrieve information, present it much better than a regular search engine or another tooling can. And I'm super excited because I've seen a lot of projects that try to use RAG, but it can be very difficult to productionize. It can be very difficult to figure out a good way to get it to the place where you want to be. Cohere has provided this API to make that a lot easier. You don't have to worry about your vector database setup. You don't have to worry about retrievers, readers, your generator, or whatever. One API, just use it. And I'm excited to see what these creators have cooked us up for today. We'll get started in a few minutes. In the meantime, let's catch up, Sonam. What have you been up to and what's new?
Sounds Oh, what's new? I've been writing blog posts, working on different projects, and as you said, using RAG is difficult. So yeah, just exploring those things and hosting meetups just like this one, and meeting new people. And yeah, it has been pretty good. How about yourself?
Yeah, I just recently, well, a lot of work stuff, a lot of vacation stuff because the holidays are coming up. So getting
Oh
ready to
yeah.
travel. I just posted a portfolio project of mine, which I use large language models in. It's kind of my way of learning how
Mm.
to fine tune large language models, how to use some endpoints. My next project, I want to be in RAG in order to learn more about how to do this type of generation on some database that you've created. Maybe it'd be good for us to talk about why RAG is even something that people are interested in. So,
Yeah.
shapeable augmented generation is like cool because it allows you to use the power of large language models, but ground them in some sort of database that has access to maybe your company's information or a curated set of data, PDFs, charts, images, whatever it might be. In this case, it's text data, but it could be any data if you generalize the term, and allows you to condition your generations on that data. So maybe you have a bunch of documents, or maybe you have a bunch of PDFs. You turn those PDFs into text. You can search over those PDFs, and then you can condition a large language model to generate a response based on those PDFs. And this is the basis of those ask your data apps that everyone is building. It's kind of like the new Hello World is building a LangChain based
Oh
or Llama
yeah.
Index based ask your data application.
Hmm.
And that's kind
Yeah.
of what we're seeing a lot of.
Yeah, and I usually like when someone asks me what RAG is, I usually give them the example of how we used to have those open book exams in schools where we have the question paper and you have like the answers, whatever you have learned, and then you have these books, but you have to go and externally search. So that's the kind of I guess a correlation example I give to understand RAG, which I think it makes sense. It's like such an old thing, and now we're using it to make these models better, which is great actually. I'm sure people are seeing much more improvement in the results, especially when the hallucinations are considered. But yeah,
Even if you
I'm
consider
excited.
it like a step up. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm good. Go ahead.
Great. I was like, yeah, even if you consider it a step up from something like semantic search or keyword search, it can provide a lot of
Mm,
lift and a lot of improvement really early in the pipeline. But
exactly.
enough about our hypothesizing, enough about us
I know.
kind of talking about what we think is interesting. Sonam, why don't you
Yeah.
introduce our guests for today and what they're going to present?
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. So, audience, whoever watching is, we are here to present our choral hackathon winners, two very motivated and technically smart women, Moneebah and Ayesha, presenting their winner app called Byte. And I will let them do the introduction. Hi, Moneebah. Hi, Ayesha. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great.
Thank you so much for having
So,
All
us.
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure.
Of course. And Moneebah, Ayesha, we're going to let you share your screen. The floor is yours, and feel free to begin your
Yeah.
demo as soon as you can. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm just going to start with the presentation we have prepared. So we are basically showcasing our app Bite, which is essentially a nutritionist in your pocket. Now, the idea was derived from just looking at this label and thinking about how people who have allergies or who have certain conditions that they can't eat certain foods, or if they have certain goals, they can't really gain insights by looking at something like this. You either have to search each individual ingredient, and it's just a hassle. So that's where we thought of the problem, where there is a lot of nutritional knowledge, but there's this huge gap to reach that personalized information. And the knowledge online is usually very general. You can't really get your personalized information. And that all leads to inefficient healthy choices. So we aim to solve that with Byte, and it's basically allowing you to decode that really scary looking nutritional facts label. You can insights, and it'll help you with a chat feature to ask questions, gain replies, and it's a very intuitive way of being more healthy. So I'm going to pass it on to Aisha. She will show you the demo we have prepared for our application, and then I'll continue with the technical explanation for the architecture which we used.
All right, so this is actually a mobile first app. So this is why the demo is has been recorded on phone screen. So I'm just going to share that. All right, so here's the demo. Okay. All right, so this is our app Byte, and this is the home page. It has all the instructions about what you're supposed to do, step by steps, and a bit more information about our app. Okay. So without further ado, let's go to the sign up page. And here I'm just like creating an account for demonstration purpose. Okay, now when we hit sign up, it's going to give us an alert saying sign up is successful. After that, we move on to fill in the form so that we can personalize the experience. We give it information. You can give it information about yourself and your current health information, your current health goals. So I'm just like assuming a personality over here. Now that was just some general information. In allergies, I'm going to add gluten as an allergy. And for disease, I'm just going to choose diabetes. And considering diabetes is one of the most widespread diseases right now, so I'm just going to add the health goals, activity level, and for dietary preferences, I'm just adding a custom dietary preference, not choosing one from the list. So I've added locally foods as a dietary preference. And now we're just going to add the purpose for using this app. Now we click submit. So our form has been processed. Okay, so this is the document upload page. Over here, you can add your medical documents that are actually like a bit, sort of difficult to interpret. So this is just a blood test report, nothing too much. And I have added this. You can add any medical document that you would like to provide the app with so that it can get more information. And all of the information from this document has been extracted, as you can see here. Now we go on to the main chat page, which is of course the main aspect of the app. Okay, now imagine you're in a grocery store, so you just take a photo of this packet of chips that you really want to buy, but you're not sure if it's good for you. You take a quick picture of the nutrition label as well as the ingredient list. So now a picture has been taken. Use this photo, and then we also we're going to write a question as well. Should I eat these chips? Then you hit ask. So the response is going to be generated. And of course, we're using Cohere Coral's GoChat endpoint for this. We're using RAG retrieval, so it can retrieve data from the internet, from the documents you uploaded, and from the database as well, from the vector database BYTE. Okay, so here is the response. As you can see, all of the information from the nutrition label has been extracted, the ingredients, the nutrition facts, and as you can see, the response is very, very personalized. It has pointed out that the food item is high in calories because we mentioned we like low calorie foods. It has pointed out the carbohydrate and sugar content because of the diabetes option, and the dietary restriction again. And again, so all of this stuff is really personalized based on the form that I filled, giving it my info. So it is very personalized for me. Not just that, some alternate food products have been recommended as well. So you can instantly get alternate food recommendations. I've just opened one of these links that was displayed. And as you can see, it's a valid link and it's a valid food item, which is a healthier option. Like it's a healthier chips than I wanted to buy. So it has given this healthy alternative quickly in a matter of few seconds. Now we can even ask it questions without attaching an image. So I've just removed that image and I'm just asking it a general questions. Suggest some good breakfast options for me. Let's wait for it to generate a response. Okay, great. So as you can see, it has suggested these healthy food options, keeping in mind my personal goals, my health options, and my dietary preferences. And not just that, but it has also provided citations. Again, this is the good thing about RAG, because you get citations for everything that is generated. Let's visit one of these links to see if the citations are actually valid. And yes, it is a valid link, and the response is based on like actual citations. So that was it for the demo.
So we're going to continue on with the presentation and just explain the technical architecture of the demo you just saw. So here is a sort of high-level overview diagram of what is going on behind the scenes. As you can see, at the center here is CoChat, where it's basically taking the request from the user, taking the information from the web, as well as the data that we've deployed using Flask, and it can query the VBA data and then give a personalized response that is grounded, as well as using its own search query mode to pass on the search queries to Google Search API to generate valid links for products that the user can then buy. So it just, once a user takes an image, the Google Vision API just converts. Preamble override is used, which is basically like you are a professional nutritionist, and along with the user's message is we've crafted an input that goes into CoChat. Now over here, we've basically uploaded all the data to VB8, which is then queried every time CoChat uses its two connectors, one for the web and one for the one we've deployed using Flask. So let's just quickly dive into each screen of the BYTE app. And here is the sign up, which is sort of just I'll quickly zoom by this. It's you quickly verify, because we've used multi-tenancy, which is basically each user will have their own separate vector space. They don't need to interfere with other people's space or have the risk of their documents being seen by other or picked up by other people. So that's why we've used this create new tenant function, which creates a new tenant over here in the VBA database, and everything is then separated. Moving on towards the form, here we've generated a form on Streamlit, and once submitted, we generate a dictionary of the responses, and that's useful because that will help us in creating a data object for VBA to quickly go into the database. The medical documents section, where you upload your medical documents, is quickly used as well. It uses the unstructured API to batch. First, it converts it into documents, then it batch imports it into VBA for it to be vectorized using Cohere's embed model. So here is the under the hood upload documents, where we use the unstructured API, as well as it being split into recursive text characters, and then loaded, etc. Once more, the batch import is also specified. We've shown the under the hood function that we use and how it gets imported into BB8. Okay, so this is the star of the show, the chat screen. And this is basically, we're taking you step by step onto how we implemented this. So beginning with the image. So here it first checks if there's an uploaded file. If there is, it extracts the text using the Vision API. And then it continues on adding it to the prompt along with the preamble, which we had specified. Here, once we move on, it generates the response using CoChat, and it uses both connectors, the web search and the one that we've implemented ourselves. It uses the session history, and this is just the basic out-of-the-box implementation. We've taken the links from the response and formatted that to include in the citations as well. Now, let's dive into how we made this connector. We've actually deployed it on Flask. So because we use multi-tenancy and each user is uploading different documents, we have to also not just allow the connector mode to connect to our Flask endpoint, but we have to also send in the ID because to specify which user is going into which user's data is being accessed. And that's not directly done with Cohere's CoChat. So that's why we've first specified a set tenant in Flask function, which we then implemented using, which then hits this endpoint, set tenant, and it sets the tenant in the session state for Flask. Moving on towards the actual connector, once it's authorized, it actually hits this endpoint API query. And here it extracts the query from the request. Then it checks if the tenant name is already set in the session state. And then using both the session state as well as the information that Cohere sends it, it generates a response and formats it so that Cohere can gain insights from the response. Here is the under the hood implementation of us formatting the response, querying VV8, and then formatting the response. Okay, so here is the alternative products, and we've actually implemented this using Cohere's search query mode. And in the actual code, it seems really simple, but I'll show you the under the hood implementation as well. We basically check if there was a nutritional label that was scanned, if there was an uploaded file, and then we get the links and display the links. Now, under the hood, displaying the links is basically just making it a sidebar, having it really pretty and look. But getting the links is the real deal, which we used query mode for. So we basically allowed CoChat and give it the information about the user so that it can generate relevant queries for the Google Search API. And then Google Search goes on to generate links for the products that we'll use, and we pass it back on to the display function for them to be displayed properly. Now, you might be wondering why we didn't just use Cohere to generate the links. We actually thought of just using Cohere and then using the citations it generates. And ideally, we thought that it would generate the product links, but it's used for citations, not for products. So that's why we first generated search queries and then passed it on to Google Search API. And that generated the product links. And yeah, that was our
And
technical
also just
architecture. Yeah.
I just want to add that the search query mode is really, really useful. Like I found it to be so useful. You just passed, if you just pass it the scan nutrition label and the user info, it generates really good queries. I feel like you can make a good use of it in apps. You can pass it a good amount of information, and it would just generate a concise query for your purpose. So it's a very useful thing, I feel like that.
Yeah, you could redirect the query to anywhere. And when we saw that in the presentation, which Cohere did for the competition, we knew we had to send it to some Google search and get some products to recommend to people and see just how good the product recommendation was. So yeah, that is it from our side. We also have some future expansions planned. First, we're making this a proper mobile app. This was sort of a hackathon level Streamlit demo that we made. So we're actually making it a proper app. Then we're also implementing sort of a community feature, which we can sort of use the vector spaces and allow people to communicate. And then the last one would be definitely the multilingual feature, which we are thinking of looking into Cohere's multilingual, already embeddings and etc., and allowing for different languages to be considered. So that is it. Thank you from our end. That was our project. Love to hear and any doubts that you have.
All
Wow.
right.
Ladies, this was a power-packed app. Congratulations. No wonder you guys are the winners. I can see why. What do you think,
Thank you.
Arjun?
Yeah, this is really cool. I think the initial idea is pretty convincing. You're taking a field that is something people might feel like they have a lot of intuition about, like what is good to eat, what isn't good to eat, but it turns out there's a lot of depth to the topic. There's a lot of information that you need to kind of ingest in order to make a good decision. Sometimes that information is not easily accessible. Sometimes it's hard to verify that information. So building an application to kind of assist finding the correct information, especially in nutrition, and kind of helping people do that is really helpful. When I was looking at this app, I was thinking about my own health challenges. Last year, I got sick with COVID, and then it got to a point where it really upset my stomach. So I had to change my diet really significantly. And I thought about how difficult it was to figure out like what would be the appropriate diet for me to control some of the longer symptoms that I got from the illness. And it took such a long time for me to figure out exactly what that would look like. I imagine applications like these can kind of help you accelerate that a little more, maybe initiate a more informed conversation with your doctor or healthcare professional, or make small lifestyle changes that could be really helpful for you. So really great idea and really clean presentation. I really liked how you split it up. The demo was easy to understand. Each of the code bites at the end of the technical presentation, having a systems diagram was also really enlightening, allowed me to understand the different moving parts. One fun fact I want to mention is that the demo that you all did with taking a photo of the chip bag reminded me of the demo of Humane's AI pin. They did something really similar where they took a photo of a bag and asked, like, is this healthy to eat? So it's nice to see that you can build that capability pretty quickly, say over a weekend, like you all did with the hackathon, and even have something extremely polished. So it's very, very cool application. I have tons of questions. I'm sure Sonam has tons of questions. But during the Maker Spotlight session, we usually head to the chat first. So let's look at the chat, and then we'll start asking our own questions. So Sonam, we got one up here. Why don't you go ahead and kick us
Yeah.
off?
So Ethan has a question for you, ladies. So how do you take into account dynamic data? Let's say someone with diabetes, or someone who has an issue that somewhat varies dynamically.
Okay, so we actually the form is editable, or like right now it's not the most proper app. It's just based on Streamlit, but when we make it a proper app, the form is definitely editable. You can go back, you can modify information, you can remove things, you can add things. It's definitely very dynamic.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
and the
Very
medical
Right, and
documents that you upload. Sorry.
hmm
The medical
no,
documents
go
that you
ahead.
upload, you can add information exactly to how extreme your diabetes is. So it won't really consider, for example, if you're pre-diabetic, type 2 diabetes, so you can specify that information later in the medical documents, and it will give a more personalized response that way.
Okay. Nice. Arjun, you wanted to say something.
Sonam,
No, no, no.
yeah, I
You
have
go
a lot
first.
of
You look eager.
questions I want to ask. All right, cool, great. So one thing I want to start with is kind of stepping back from the technical structure just to understand more of the motivation of the app, the demo for you all. I'd really like to know why did you end up choosing this idea to build a demo of, and who would be the ideal user that would use this application, assuming you get it to like its final state. Like who would enjoy using this type of application?
Thanks for stealing my question, by the way.
We basically made this with sort of our own parents and siblings and people in our family who basically don't get enough information about which product they're eating, and they're basically struggling reading the labels and saying, is this one good for me, getting out their glasses. And so it's definitely for people who already have either certain type of allergies or foods that they can't eat, and it's already a big obstacle for them, and this will just be like a click and go situation for them. And we've also considered the people who are sort of enthusiasts and counting calories, or looking at the ingredients and really wanting to know what goes inside their bodies. So this is also one for them, and you can even explore more using the citations for if you're like a power user and want to know exactly where the information is coming from. So for both these kind of users is what we targeted.
Like recently there's a lot of trend going on, like people going vegan, and a lot of health and wellness industry is really like it's growing exponentially. So this is like sort of a perfect timing to jump onto that bandwagon basically.
That's a brilliant idea. I totally agree with you. And so now I have a question. So when you were setting this up, I know that you guys used different APIs and many different tools. What were like the biggest challenges that you went through while building this architecture?
I think for the architecture specifically would be the connecting the database towards CoChat. That was quite difficult because it was our first time using this API, and it was in beta mode, and so we didn't have like the perfect documentation to go off of, and that's why we kind of struggled with that. And also the multi-tenancy feature. Again, it was a new feature that BB8, and so we again tried out different techniques, and it's just using something that is not completely released to the public and is in beta mode. So some things like that, using them and not having the proper documentation, it was a challenge. It was really fun, and we learned a lot that way. So yeah.
Nice, nice. Awesome.
One thing you said about food substitutions and dietary restrictions is something that I find really interesting, because I think that that is something that you could incorporate in your application even as a separate feature, because I think it's the list of food substitutions for specific things you can find pretty easily, like for dairy substitutions or for egg substitutions, something like that. Like that could be a really interesting application to include. That's another challenge that I ran into when I had like problems trying to adjust my diets, like figuring out what is appropriate to substitute what, how to affect those things. Our lovely Sandra has a question of her own. Thank you, Sandra, for your question in the chat. What type of data, in your experience, chat with RAG works best? So there are lots of different data sources you have here, right? The PDFs, the text, the online resources, the images. What type of data, when you all were doing your testing, do you think works best?
I think it depends on how the data is embedded into the
online
database. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go on, Ayesha.
No, I was just saying that it actually works well with online resources. If you like, maybe if you just direct it to a particular, like a particular domain, a particular website, because if you like don't restrict it, then there's a lot of data, right? But if you restrict it, if you specify a certain domain, then it does well, because you have limited information, but it's not too limited. So that's a good,
Yeah,
use of
and
that.
also
Right.
using hybrid search, we didn't just do keyword searching or just totally vector search. So when we embedded certain data, searching it appropriately or having the top responses be generated so that it's not overloaded with data, and just get data to be retrieved on top, because that I think is the main essence. You can load in whatever data you want, but retrieving the exact one, it all depends on how the it is retrieved, basically the technique used.
Nice.
I have a very interesting follow-up to kind of the design here. As you all are, as I understand, software engineering students, you must have thought pretty deeply about how to construct the design of the system you've built. Whenever I build these things, I'm sure Sonam shares this sentiment as well, I always get tripped up in how to test them appropriately. Like, how do I know that every part of my system is working correctly? Am I sending the data to the right places? Am I correctly generating the responses that I need to make? So I'm curious to hear if you all had any things that you did in order to assure that all of your linkages and connectors were working appropriately, or if there were specific tests that you ran to ensure the user experience was as smooth as you demonstrated.
Yeah, we basically.
Yeah, there were a lot of tests.
Sorry.
Okay,
go ahead,
go
Ayesha. For the API, we basically used Insomnia. So we had to do a lot of tests to get our connector connected to Cohere. And so using something like Insomnia or even Postman, something like that, to test your API, sending in dummy requests and responses to first break down the problem, not just suddenly implementing APIs. You have to send in dummy requests and see what the response is like. And like, we changed our strategy from not fully depending on Cohere to just generate the citations or alternative product links, but generate the search queries, and then those are passed to the Google Search API. So that was also generated because we first tested out the API and saw that it generated really good search queries, and it was really optimized for that, and not just for generating the links. So use that, passed it on to Google Search, which was really good at generating links, and then combine them together. So testing each thing individually, using their strengths, and then connecting them, I think is the way to go whenever you're implementing something really big, and breaking it down will help.
I'm still pretty impressed that you all got to build something this complicated over the course of
I
the
know.
hackathon. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on here. Like, when I heard about the application, I thought it was just like chat over documents, and I was like, okay, cool. Like that's something I can hold in my head. But it looks like you all have really thought about different ways of interacting with the nutritional data that someone might work with. You figured out how to kind of test those things and build this type of chat system to really think about all that sort of stuff. So I'm really excited to learn more about this project and to mess around with it. I'm really excited to see what you two do in the future. Sonam, do you have any more questions? We can, maybe the last few we can end the stream with.
No, I think I got my questions answered, and I'm really excited to see where this app goes next. Yeah, I would strongly encourage to make it a full legit app for people to use. And while you guys were presenting, I was thinking maybe, like, so my gym has this something inbuilt, like Planet Fitness, where I go. I think there is something that they talk about nutrition in their app or something. I was just thinking if their app could be intermingled with Planet Fitness, just to see, like, plan the diet according to what kind of workout do you do. So that's something I was just thinking back on my head. But
Actually,
wonderful
yeah.
job, guys. Go ahead.
We do have just seeing this. We do have this plan to integrate paid like promotions basically. So companies, food companies, and like you suggested, gyms, they can uh, get their sponsored promotions and ads. We can promote their links, we can promote their stuff. So that's something that can make our product commercial and make it money basically monetized.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, your feature of implementing sort of your workout routine and seeing what diet plan would be best for you is also a feature that we could add potentially for our application moving forward, and allow people to write in their workout regimen and then generate a sort of relevant
Right.
diet plan for them. I think it would be really suitable.
I agree. I see there is one question, and I think we have time for the one last question, Arjun. Am I right?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So we have a question from LinkedIn. Someone from LinkedIn. It says, "What did you do to evaluate or test the accuracy?"
I think this might be in terms of the responses that are generated, for example. So a
Yeah.
very common issue with, especially just using straight up large language models, is, am I getting the truth, or am I getting like
Exactly.
some semblance of the truth? So how can you deal with that, and what have you all kind of done to help mitigate the risk of that?
In our recent
So
hackathon,
one thing we did was
recently
we
got
adjusted the.
yeah, go on, Aisha.
No, you go on. No, I was just about the accuracy aspect. I was just saying that we actually had to like test out the preamble and just to get that perfect point, research queries and everything. So that was to for the accuracy part. I was just saying that. So I can go
Yeah,
on.
and for the evaluation, we're going to add on the True Lens evaluation, which we started with our new we learned from a new hackathon, and so we are going to try and fully get the context groundedness onto like proper metrics that we can rank it against. So that's what we intend on doing next, and applying TrueLens to fully evaluate RAG applications. Again, it's all in the beginning phases, so we will continue to move on towards this.
Absolutely.
Great.
It's very difficult to build an app that has no hallucinations whatsoever. That's just the
Yeah.
reality of working with large language models. The best thing you can do is something like you all did, which is try to ground or condition the generation based on actual text in order to prevent the risk of that happening. We probably shouldn't ignore the elephant in the room, which is that, we really don't want to hallucinate on important medical information because that can cause people to make really big mistakes. So you want to always be careful about that. But this is a demo. This is just a potential way of building this type of product. One thing that I would suggest is, as a small piece of advice, is that if you start thinking about bringing this to production or keep iterating on it, I would try to find like one slice of the application that you've created. So maybe one thing that's really interesting to me is like taking a photo of a nutrition label and then interpreting that photo against like what a user input would be about what their health goals are, for example, which seems to be a really common thing that people have. Like, can I eat this, or what will this do if I do eat this, and how will it affect my goals? I think that sliver of the app is really interesting, and it could be something you could scale up pretty nicely and maybe verify even easily with the generations. So working on maybe one sliver of the application, getting it really airtight, getting it really close to what actually should happen, maybe even gathering like annotated data in order to kind of reduce the risk of hallucinations. That could be really interesting. So just a small piece of advice going into the future, try to find like one of these things and make it really well instead of doing all of it. In my experience, it can get really hard and really confusing when you have lots of different APIs flowing around. But for the demo, for the way it was presented and the way it currently works, it's very interesting and it's very powerful. But yeah, as you go into production, you gotta be more and more careful about these sorts of things. But when you're trying to demonstrate the value of an idea, of how an idea could be implemented, I think not having like perfect accuracy is fine. But yeah, cool. I think that's our last question there.
I think so. Awesome.
Okay.
I
Awesome.
guess we are
Well,
ready to wrap up.
thank you so much, Moneebah and Ayesha, for coming
Thank
on the
you.
live stream today to our Maker Spotlight. Your
Yeah,
Thank
presentation was
you for
great.
having
The
us.
technical presentation, the demo, the app was wonderful. Do you have
it's
any
really
last
good. Yeah.
words for all of the viewers?
Just thank you for having us. And it was our first time ever participating in like a huge hackathon. And so we're really happy that it ended up in this way. And just if anyone's watching this thinking about whether they should take on that next risk, I would say go for it. You never know what could happen. And you could potentially make a really great application or something of the sort.
Yep. Well said, Moneebah.
And we also really appreciate the opportunity that Cohere is providing us, because we really like Cohere, and we're so thankful for this opportunity, and definitely look forward to working more with Cohere and using Cohere in our products in the future. Thank you
You
so
and
much
I
for having me.
both. Awesome. Cool. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you
Thanks,
next time.
everybody. See you next time.
Bye.